Welcome to Your Daily Writing Habit. If you are writing a book or thinking about it, or maybe you've started writing your book but you're having trouble finishing it, you are in the right place. Good morning. I'm your host, Christine Whitmarsh. If you're looking for me online, especially on social media, look for Christine Ink, like that stuff we write with. Each day, I am sharing with you the writing habits I've learned over my 18 years as a ghostwriter, book coach, and author. I have found that three things in particular have a huge impact on your success as an author. Those three things are writing fundamentals, productivity, and mindset habits. And once again, good morning, and I am so excited about the guest I have here on Your Daily Writing Habit today. It is a client, a friend, a mentor, just so many roles that this man plays in my life. His name is Russell Redenbaugh, and let me go ahead and introduce you to Russell via his biography. Blind from the age of 16, Russell Redenbaugh's achievements as a successful investor and economist, a commissioner on the U.S. Civil Rights Commission serving under 3 U.S. presidents, and a black belt, 3-time gold medal jiu-jitsu world champion fighting sighted opponents prove that if he can, you can. Russell is the founder of Kairos Capital Investors, a financial advisor helping investors achieve better results by breaking free of Wall Street's tranquilizing narratives. He is also the author of Shift the Narrative, a blind man's vision for rewriting the stories that limit us, which is available through his website, shiftthenarrative.com, which I'll also go ahead and drop that into the show notes today. Welcome, Russell.
Oh, thank you, Christine. So I'm surprised that we haven't done this before.
Yes.
It certainly can't be explained by your pretense of shyness.
No, my pretense of shyness. That's a good way of saying it. And yeah, I was as surprised as you were to recall that we haven't done this before. So I'm glad that we rectified that problem. All right. Well,
That's right.
Go ahead.
Well, as I recall, we have been working together since about 2014.
14. Mm-hmm. That's correct. And as you know, I think I pointed out to you, this really, my show here, Your Daily Writing Habit, isn't typically an interview habit. So when an interview format. So when I do, and it's also not edited. I hope people appreciate that. And so when I do bring someone on the show as a guest, it's for a very specific and important reason. So I hope you feel honored in that regard.
Oh, of course.
Good. Well, let's begin, and with really the best part, because story for me is the best part of everything. If you could go ahead and please share with us the story of the trauma that you experienced as a teenager that forever shifted the narrative of your life.
Well, let me back up a bit and
Sure.
give some orienting preamble. I was 16 years old, and like many 16-year-olds, shallow, a bit nerdy, certainly awkward, the last one chosen for pickup baseball. And I was the kind of guy that took shop classes in high school, which at my 25th high school reunion, I realized it was the shop nerds who became wealthy and the cheerleader guys who became highway patrolmen. So the world turned upside down from the point of view of a high school student in 1960s in Salt Lake City, Utah. So I was a rather ordinary kid, undistinguished in everything, especially academics. I was working hard to get up to a C. And I sort of vaguely expected I would drift into my father's small candy manufacturing business and make it really grow. although I didn't have any skill in that area. And the only relationship I had to the business was that I had been the janitor starting about age 6, and at that time had advanced to candy cook. So on one sort of boring Saturday in May in 1962, I was building a rocket in my garage, inspired by John Fitzgerald Kennedy's declaration a few months before that we will put a man on the moon and bring him back alive in this decade. So we had all the components of a powerful declaration there. We will try. He didn't say we'll try. He didn't say we'll put a man on the moon. We'll put him on the moon and bring him back alive by when? By the end of this decade. Now, I had no idea of the importance of things that I now understand are declarations. But I thought, wow, that would be really cool to be an astronaut. That would get girls way better than taking metal shots. So I started to understand rocketry by building one. Well, as is obvious, I'm no rocket scientist because in a rather short amount of time, a matter of weeks, I managed to have the rocket that I was trying to develop the fuel supply for explode in my hands, which left me short of 6 fingers and instantly blind in one eye. I spent 7 weeks in the hospital at that time, and finally, after a struggle, I returned to high school in the fall and started in school, and I was there just a few weeks when I developed a retinal separation in my remaining eye. And I needed to go to San Francisco for the better surgeons. So 5 trips to San Francisco over many months, 5 surgeries. Each one was, well, maybe the next one. Well, maybe the next one. This goes on for months. And after the last one, I didn't know it was the last one, the doctors came to my hospital room. And of course, by then I was only 17. So they really don't talk to the 17-year-old. They talk to my mother. Although they're pretending to talk to me. They say, well, Russell, we've done all that we can for you. We're sad to tell you that you'll be blind for the rest of your life. And as you've asked me in the past, Christine, what did I do? Well, the first thing I did was notice that my mother had dissolved completely into tears, and I wanted to put her to work to break her out of this horrible news for any mother. She'd been a legal secretary, so I said, take a letter. She immediately started doing shorthand on a little pad, and I wrote an application letter to the Guide Dogs for the Blind, a school in San Rafael, California, near the San Francisco hospital, and applied to become one of their summer students the following summer. And for me, this was what I'm calling the end of purgatory. You know, purgatory is that place where you go, apparently, in some Christian religions, before it's determined whether you're going down to hell or up to heaven. I've been in purgatory. I couldn't anticipate. I couldn't plan. I couldn't do anything with my life because the very next surgery would restore sufficient sight in one eye that I could lead a not normal life, but close enough. I suddenly realized I needed to get good at lots of things. And one of the things I realized I needed to get good at was being a student. I needed to learn how to learn. And I did. I got admitted to the University of Utah in part because my high school managed to find some loopholes in which they deemed that I graduated in spite of missing most of my classes the last year. So the University of Utah had to take me, although they didn't have to keep me. But soon I learned how to do university, and I finished there at number one student in my college, very high in the overall university rankings. And I realized that this was especially for someone with serious limitations. That is, if people had the chance to hire two equally qualified twins, it's doubtful they would choose the twin that was blind. So I decided I needed more schooling. The hot degree at that time was Master's in Business Administration. I thought really big. I thought Harvard. And then I thought Stanford, that's close to Utah. Harvard's far away and cold in the winter. If I wanted to be cold, I could stay in Utah. Well, Harvard were very gentlemanly. The dean of admissions then, his name was Anthony Athos, sent my $25 application check back and said, we can't cash your check in good faith. You can't possibly be admitted to our school. No blind person has ever graduated from the Harvard Business School. $25 check was a lot of money then. That was 25 gallons of gasoline. No, 100 gallons. And so I thought, well, I didn't want Harvard anyway. I applied to Stanford. They kept the check, but turned me down twice. Same reason. This program is as difficult as theirs, would be so tough that no blind person could ever complete it. I don't know how either school knew that because they had never admitted a blind person. I decided, whoops, I better do something different. So I went in person to the Wharton School in Philadelphia, met with the dean of admissions, and gave him the opportunity to overcome the serious mistake that Stanford and Harvard had obviously made. Wharton was a bit also the underdog at that time. Before the meeting even lasted 40 minutes, he said, you're in. I have no idea if you can succeed here, but you'll be just like anyone else. If you can't, you will need to leave. That's how we work. Well, I finished fifth in my class. My mother said, well, you were first at the University of Utah. What did the other four at Wharton do that you didn't do? Some mothers are hard to please.
I think all are, right?
Right. Well, probably the good ones. So anyway, that's the story that got me from 62 to 69 and into the work world.
Excellent. Love that story. It knocks my socks off every time, as many times as I've obviously heard it. There's so many great lessons in there. All right. So Russell, what kind of opportunities do you think, or anything that emerged as a result of the accident, that emerged as a result of the trauma that perhaps wouldn't have existed otherwise in your life?
Well, trauma is an enormous opportunity for growth. It's also the enormous opportunity opportunity to become a victim, which always looked to me like a very poor rate of return. So one of the things I began doing was considering myself not a victim. I consider myself, let's call it traumatically gifted. Post-traumatic gifted, that's it. In fact, I was speaking with a serious mentor of mine recently, and he was speaking critically of a young man that we both know. And I said, well, he's young and he hasn't had the same opportunities that you and I have had, Dr. Flores. He didn't have the opportunity to go to a Chilean torture prison for 3 years because he was on the wrong side of a coup, and nor did he have the opportunity, as I did, to blow himself up when he was 16 years old. So we laughed at that and realized that we achieved some blessings from circumstances that people normally don't think of as blessings. So one of the things I learned, though, importantly, is that opportunities don't knock on your door. Opportunities don't appear. Opportunities favor a prepared mind, but one needs to locate them and produce them and cultivate them. So I learned a lot of things about failure. Like, when you fail, don't merely try again. Of course, try something, but try and not do the same thing, especially if you failed at that effort 2 or 3 times. Then what I say is, when you fall down, get up, but also find another way so you don't fall down. So I guess that's what I would say about opportunities. I believe deeply, and this is reflected in the title of the first book, Shift the Narrative, that we limit ourselves by the narratives or stories that we tell ourselves. We make up narratives or stories about our world, about who we are, how the world is. And those narratives may serve us, but they also may stop serving us. They may outlast their usefulness, or they may have never been useful, but always impedimenta. So I wrote this little book called Shift Your Narrative, Rewrite the Stories That Limit You. What I didn't realize is that people who are making progress and moving, we need to keep shifting our narrative. We never get done with it. There are different challenges, different pitfalls, different tragedies that befall us. The death of my brother is certainly a tragedy. We need to shift these narratives, or learn how to, again and again, and then yet again.
Yes. And so a follow-up to that. So, imagine someone, has gone through a trauma, and certainly this year there are probably many people in that situation. and they're really, so to speak, at the crossroads, the fork in the road, where if they go down one way, they'll, take on the victim identity and, be a victim of their trauma. Or if they go the other side of the fork, they turn it into an opportunity. What kind of advice or strategies, or what do they need to do so they can choose that right side of the road to turn the trauma into opportunity rather than victimhood?
Well, it was some famous baseball player who said, when you come to the fork in the road, take it. Willie Mays, perhaps. I'm not sure who to blame for that. Let's not even think about those of us that have the opportunity to confront a trauma. How about the merely one out of every one of us who in some part of his or her life is being a victim? Oh, I can't do that because, oh, I'm too old. Oh, I'm too young. Oh, I'm too short, too tall, too female. Always there can be an explanation for lack of accomplishment and failure. And usually the principal activity of victims, or of that part of each of us that can be a victim, is that we blame the wrong person or the wrong circumstance for our failures. It's not really my fault. You see, I'm the third of 3,700 children, and there just wasn't, that's obviously a fictional story, but it makes sense as any other victim story. Or, my mind just doesn't work that way. I can't do mathematics. No, that probably means you haven't found the right teacher yet. Not that you can't do mathematics. So you don't need to have the big opportunity of a trauma or a tragedy. Just get off the couch. Or in your case, just get in that circus act.
Get in the hoop. Or in your case, get on the jiu-jitsu mat.
Well, I forgot. That's right. I ran out of excuses when Stephen Maxwell, my friend and gym teacher for way over a decade, said, "Oh, you'd love jiu-jitsu. Why don't you try it? You'd like it. It's perfect for you. It's a three-dimensional chess game. It favors the strategic, the smart, the clever, and the quick." I don't think I'd like it. Well, he was right. I was wrong. I didn't start till I was 50. But in not very long, I had some gold medals and a black belt and lots of fun fighting sighted opponents with all of their fingers. Now, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a grappling art, not a striking art. So you're seriously limited if you only have one hand, and that one's not very strong. But I learned to fight with my feet, which are almost prehensile, and my legs are long, flexible, and strong. So in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the point of the game, is to take your opponent to the mat. That takes away any thought he may have of punching or kicking. That doesn't work on the ground. And from the ground, then I can pit my legs against his arms. That gives me the size, strength, and reach advantage. Now, obviously, a lot of opponents don't sign up for fighting their arms against your legs. But there are ways to encourage them to let you have your way. And one of the things I've learned about jiu-jitsu, it's the art of letting the other person have your way. So I have learned a great deal from jiu-jitsu. And in fact, there are two European documentary or film producing organizations, which are both simultaneously doing different aspects of my career in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In fact, they are cooperating with Craig Johnson, who's producing the documentary of my life, and they're going to share footage and share production and post-production costs. It looks like they'll all cooperate together and approach very different purposes and very different markets with these three
Excellent.
film
episodes. They're collaborating. Yep. Yeah, it's very good of them to do that.
Yep. Well, why not?
Exactly. The only reason why not would be ego, and it's good they're all working with the right mindset.
The really good people in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu have passed the ego stage a long time ago.
All right. I want to move on to the next subject, which is a very popular one here on the show. I've mentioned it in the intro, habits. And I know a lot of my authors, my audience kind of laugh at how obsessed I am with habits. So, hey, everyone, you're about to find out where I get it from. My mentor. So as habits obsessed as I am, here's the source. So I would love for you, Russell, to explain, if any, what's the connection between what we've been talking about today about turning trauma into opportunity, or any of the subjects today. What's the connection between those topics and habits?
Well, we all live in habits. But not all of us curate our habits to eliminate those that aren't productive or good for us and foster those that are productive. We live in a country that has a fascination with overnight results, overnight success. And we forget that wealth, for example, is a lagging indicator of the application of many different habits. Maybe a better way to say it is physical fitness is a lagging indicator of many habits around diet, exercise, the gym, etc. And if we expect rapid results, we will, of course, be very disappointed and frustrated and find that couch potato is easier than a life of effective habits. I strongly recommend to people the work of James Clear, who's written a wonderful book. I know you follow this one, called Atomic Habits. It's a wonderful book. He also has every Thursday a free email newsletter encouraging habits. I frequently send this to people and recommend they become a follower of James Clear. If they want to have more of their life than they now have, if they're blissfully happy, there's nothing they need to do.
Yes. So how would you connect, what's the connection between whether or not you're going to be a victim or not, or, how the victim identity and habits, or I'm just connecting dots here in my head?
Well, if you need instant success, about the only way to achieve that is to play the lottery. However, statistically speaking, the odds of winning the lottery are the same as whether you play or not. So, instant success, we may see people, particularly in the entertainment world, and maybe once in a while there is really someone with an overnight success. But nearly always the overnight success came after years of building habits and building skills. And it looks like overnight success to outsiders. And listen, if you can do it overnight, God bless you. I wasn't able to. It took me the application of years of habits to learn to be a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, years of habit and application to accumulate my skill as an investor, and then even longer to accumulate the wealth that is the lagging indicator of effective investing habits.
So I wonder if it's a matter of if someone is, with the victim identity, I'm not having as much as of the things I want in life, or I'm not successful in life because I'm too much this, I'm not enough that. And I wonder how closer the answer is to, well, maybe you just don't have the right habits to be the things that you want to be in life.
Well, but you're on the right path if you're at least willing to say, I'm not enough of that.
Mm-hmm.
You've already stopped saying, it's not my fault. Then you've already partly gone through the door called, if I'm not enough of that, what is that? And how do I acquire that trait, habit, skill? I believe that anything that can be learned can be taught. Then if there's something you want to learn, find a teacher. There's also an old saying that says, when the student is ready, the teacher will be found. I've been so blessed in my life to have so many wonderful teachers. Many of them really mentors and not paid teachers, and some of them just great teachers from schools. So, what do you need to learn? How do you need to learn it? How do you find a teacher? One thing that all good teachers, really never have enough of is good students. So you want to seduce a good teacher, be a great student. We can't find enough of those.
Very true. And speaking of influencing others positively, final question here. What have you gained as an author specifically with the opportunity to write and speak to others about your life story and lessons?
I began systematically decades ago to learn to write before I ever even considered writing my little book. Because learning to write is a way to learn to think. Maybe the best way. Because you can't put down on paper, well, it's sort of like that. You can't answer questions, well, it's sort of this way. So being a clear writer requires that you learn to be a clear thinker. And so I keep learning a lot how to think more clearly by writing more clearly.
Excellent point. Love every part of that. All right. Well, we have covered possibly more ground than what's ever been covered. This is really a remarkable episode. Remarkable man. Thank you again so very much, Russell, for being on the show today.
Well, Christine, you are too modest to call attention to your contribution, your considerable contribution to my success in writing, in speaking, and in becoming more. So I thank you.
Very welcome. My honor. And thank all of you for joining me here on Your Daily Writing Habit, where I am helping you write and finish writing an awesome book. And if you know someone else who wants to do that same thing, please let them know about this show. You can send them to yourdailywritinghabit.com, yourdailywritinghabit.com. Until tomorrow, happy writing.